The moon that night was not just hanging in the sky, it was watching. Silent, patient, almost aching. Nilavil Naam, together under the moon, was once a promise whispered by two hearts that believed love alone was enough to survive the world. Bittu first noticed her on a quiet evening when the campus lights flickered on and the sky turned a soft shade of blue. Gayathry was standing near the old banyan tree, humming a tune so gentle it felt like the night itself had begun to sing. He didn't know her name then. He only knew that something inside him shifted, like a door opening to a place he had forgotten existed. From that moment, the moon became a witness to everything they would become and everything they would lose. They met again, not by coincidence, but by courage. Bittu gathered the nerve to speak to her, his voice trembling as he asked about the song she was humming. Gayathry smiled, a smile that carried warmth and sadness together, and said it was a song her mother used to sing when sleep refused to come. That simple conversation grew into long walks, shared silences, and laughter that echoed through empty corridors. Under the moonlight, they spoke about dreams. Bittu wanted to create music that healed broken hearts. Gayathry dreamed of a life where love did not demand sacrifice at every turn. But love, as they soon learned, is rarely allowed to remain simple. Bittu came from a modest background, carrying responsibilities heavier than his age. His family depended on him, and every dream he chased came with guilt close behind. Gayathry, on the other hand, lived in a world shaped by expectations. Her family valued security over passion, stability over emotion. They had already planned a future for her, one that did not include moonlit walks or uncertain dreams. When their love finally found a name, it also found resistance. Rumors spread, questions were asked, warnings were given, friends advised them to be practical, to think about reality instead of romance. The moon still rose every night, but their conversations grew quieter, burdened by fears they had never spoken aloud. The first real challenge came when Gayathry's family discovered the truth. She was forbidden to see Bittu. Her phone was taken away. Her freedom shrank overnight. Bittu waited under the same moon where they once promised forever, but she never came. That night, the moon felt colder, distant, like it was grieving with him. Days turned into weeks. Bittu poured his pain into music, composing melodies soaked in longing. His songs spoke of waiting, of loving someone who might never return. Meanwhile, Gayathry fought her own silent battles. Locked within expectations, she questioned whether love was meant to hurt this much. Many nights, she stood by her window, staring at the moon, whispering his name like a prayer. Their second challenge was doubt. Doubt crept in quietly, poisoning hope. Bittu began to wonder if love alone could ever win against society. Gayathry questioned whether choosing him would mean hurting everyone else she loved. They were not fighting each other, but they were fighting themselves. Fate intervened in an unexpected way. One evening, a song played on the radio, a song Bittu had written, unaware that it would reach her. Gayathry recognized the melody instantly. It carried their memories, their moonlit nights, their unfinished promises. Tears streamed down her face as she realized he had never stopped believing in them. That song changed everything. Gayathry found the courage to speak, not with anger, but with honesty. She told her family that love was not rebellion, that choosing her heart did not mean abandoning her roots. It meant trusting the values they had taught her. Her words did not break walls immediately, but they created cracks, and through those cracks, understanding slowly entered. Bittu, too, faced his fears. He confronted his family, explaining that his dreams were not an escape from responsibility, but a path toward a better future. It was not an easy conversation. Voices were raised, tears were shed. But for the first time, he stood firm, not just for love, but for himself. The final challenge was patience. Love did not triumph in one dramatic moment. It survived through waiting, compromise, and growth. Months passed before they met again, under the same banyan tree, beneath the same moon. This time, they were different, stronger, wiser, still trembling, but no longer afraid. When their eyes met, no words were needed. The moon shone brighter, as if celebrating their resilience. They understood then that love was not about escaping pain, but about walking through it together. Nilavil Naam no longer meant just together under the moon. It meant standing together in the light and the darkness. It meant choosing each other every day, even when the world tested them. Their story spread quietly, not as gossip, but as hope. A reminder that love, when nurtured with patience and courage, can transform obstacles into bridges. And somewhere above them, the moon continued to watch, silent and eternal, knowing that some promises, once whispered beneath its glow, are strong enough to shape a lifetime. Time did not stop after they met again under the banyan tree. In fact, it began to move faster, as if life was testing whether their renewed love could keep pace with reality. The moon still rose every night, but now it watched two people trying to build something fragile in a world that rarely handled love with care. Bittu and Gayathry began meeting quietly, not in secrecy, but with caution. Their conversations were deeper now, less playful, filled with questions about the future. Love had survived distance and silence, but could it survive everyday pressures? Could it survive money problems, family expectations, and the fear of failure that lingered like a shadow behind every dream? Bittu's music started gaining attention. Small invitations came first, then bigger ones. People praised his melodies, saying they carried honesty, pain, and hope all at once. But success came with its own challenge. He was often away, traveling for performances, chasing opportunities that could finally secure his future. Each goodbye felt heavier than the last, because both knew how easily distance could reopen old wounds. Gayathry supported him with a smile, but loneliness crept into her nights. She waited for his calls, stared at the moon, and reminded herself that love sometimes meant letting the other person grow. Yet doubts whispered in her heart. What if success changed him? What if one day music became more important than her? Her own challenges deepened at home. Though her family had softened, acceptance was not complete. Questions followed her everywhere. When will you settle down? Can he really provide? Is love enough to build a life? Gayathry tried to answer calmly, but every question felt like a test she was constantly failing. The strain began to show between them. Conversations turned tense. Small misunderstandings grew larger in silence. One night, under a clouded moon, they argued for the first time since reuniting. Words spoken in frustration cut deeper than intended. Bittu accused her of not believing in his dreams. Gayathry accused him of forgetting the promises he made under the moonlight. They walked away from each other that night, hearts heavy, unsure if love could survive another break. Days passed without messages. Music no longer flowed easily from Bittu's hands. Gayathry felt a hollow ache, the kind that settles deep and refuses to leave. Both realized that love was not only tested by opposition from the world, but also by the fears they carried inside themselves. The turning point came not through grand gestures, but through understanding. Bittu reread old messages, remembered the girl who waited under the moon when no one else believed in him. Gayathry listened again to his first song, the one filled with raw longing, and remembered the boy who loved her before success ever touched him. They met again, this time not under the banyan tree, but by the quiet riverside where moonlight danced on the water. There were no accusations, only honesty. Bittu admitted his fear of failing everyone he loved. Gayathry confessed her fear of being left behind. Tears flowed freely, washing away the bitterness they had allowed to grow. They made a new promise that night. Not the promise of forever, but the promise of truth. To speak before silence turned into distance. To trust before doubt poisoned love. To walk side by side, even when paths became uneven. Life did not suddenly become easy. Challenges remained. Families still questioned. Careers still demanded sacrifices. But something had changed within them. Love was no longer just emotion. It had become a choice, made again and again. As the moon reflected on the river, they stood closer, not clinging, but steady. Nilavil Naam was no longer about perfect nights and sweet dreams. It was about imperfect days, hard conversations, and the courage to stay. And the moon, timeless and patient, seemed to glow a little brighter, as if it finally believed that this love, tested by fire and fear, was learning how to endure. The river flowed on, just like life, never pausing for anyone's pain or joy. After that night of honesty, Bittu and Gayathry returned to their lives with a quiet determination, carrying love not as a fragile dream, but as a responsibility they had chosen together. Time tested them again, this time through silence that was not born of anger but of exhaustion. Bittu's work demanded more of him. Bigger stages, brighter lights, heavier expectations. His music was touching hearts, but behind the applause was a man constantly questioning whether success was worth the distance it created. Every performance ended with him looking up at the moon, wondering if Gayathry was seeing the same sky. Gayathry faced her own crossroads. An opportunity arrived for her to study and work abroad, a chance she had once dreamed of. Her family encouraged it, seeing it as a safe and respectable path. But accepting it meant leaving behind everything familiar, including the love she had fought so hard to protect. Nights became restless. The moon outside her window felt like an old friend silently asking her what she truly wanted. When she finally told Bittu, fear trembled in her voice. He listened quietly, his heart sinking even as he tried to smile. He told her she should go if it was her dream. His words were selfless, but his eyes revealed the truth. Another distance, another test, another chance to lose each other. This was their greatest challenge yet. Love versus ambition. Togetherness versus growth. For days they barely spoke, not because they didn't care, but because the decision was too heavy to touch carelessly. Both were afraid that choosing themselves might mean losing each other. Under separate skies, they searched their hearts for answers. The answer came through the very thing that had brought them together: music. Bittu composed a new song, one that spoke of two souls walking different paths under the same moon. When Gayathry heard it, she broke down. She realized love was not asking her to choose between dreams and devotion. It was asking her to grow without fear. She chose to go, but not to escape. She chose to go with honesty, commitment, and a promise to return stronger. Bittu chose to wait, not in sadness, but in faith. They did not promise that distance would be easy. They promised only that it would be meaningful. The days apart were hard. Time zones replaced moonlit meetings. Messages became lifelines. Sometimes doubt crept in, whispering that people grow apart. But every time fear rose, they reminded each other why they had begun. Love had already survived worse. Years passed quietly, not with dramatic scenes, but with steady perseverance. Gayathry grew into her independence, learning the value of standing on her own. Bittu's music matured, carrying depths shaped by longing and patience. Their love evolved, no longer dependent on presence, but rooted in trust. The day Gayathry returned, the moon welcomed her home. They met again, older, changed, but unmistakably the same at heart. There were no grand declarations, only a deep sense of peace. They had not waited for each other by standing still. They had waited by growing. Standing together once more under the moon, they finally understood the meaning of Nilavil Naam. It was not about two people clinging to each other in fear of the world. It was about two individuals walking their own journeys, yet always finding their way back to the same light. Their story became a quiet inspiration, a reminder that real love does not demand sacrifice of dreams. It teaches you how to dream together, even when you must walk alone for a while. Above them the moon shone, unchanged and eternal, as if whispering that some loves are written not just in fate, but in courage, patience, and the strength to let each other fly.